Hi, this is Representative Al Baldessaro, and this is our show, Who's Looking Out for You? And I am sitting here with my good friend Sherm Packett, representative for Londonderry, the Republican leader. Sherm, once again, welcome aboard.
Thank you, Al. It's great to be here.
Yeah, Sherm is sitting in because my regular co-host, Janine Notter, that we've been together for years, is out campaigning. She's in a primary in Merrimack, so she's really working it over there. And as Republicans are under attack, with a lot of false things that are being, said against Republicans, and
Well, the bottom line is the Democrats in Merrimack are absolutely lying about the Republican representatives out there. Saying that they haven't done anything to try and fix the water, issue and everything, which is just an outright lie.
Well, that's true. I mean, you look at Londonderry, we have some water issues here, but Kevin Smith, our town manager, is working hand in hand with the state. And I even called him a few months back there and called the state there to see what was going on. And Kevin's got a handle on it. And I know we passed that bill, which I voted against it because it was a $50 million bond. I mean, you sit on transportation, and then, of course, right next door to Public Works.
Yeah.
With the bonding and stuff and everything, and that's a big bond there, to be at the state. Which I couldn't support that.
But it's just a shame that they're misrepresenting, the 4 Republican representatives in the town of Merrimack.
And they're all good Republicans, good conservatives.
They care just about as much about the water in Merrimack
Right.
as anybody does, and it's just a shame that they have to misrepresent them like they are.
And of course, we all support water and the environment and everything else. But we got a great candidate sitting in here for state representative. Here that does a great job on science technology. He's the man on the technology. So welcome aboard, Doug.
Thanks, Al. Glad to be here.
Welcome aboard, Doug.
Yeah.
Doug's one of those people that nobody understands.
That's right.
That committee that is out in their own little world out there.
That's the brain factor, that his committee. Science and technology. Tell us a little bit about that committee.
I got to tell you, we have several members on the committee that are just like what you said, Sherm. I like to think of myself as the person that can weed through all that technical gobbledygook and talk to people as if I'm talking to my mother. So while everyone is mentioning kilowatts and megawatts and RECs and so forth, I'm talking about high taxes on your bills, subsidies, and so forth, things that people really understand. But I'd like to go back a minute. You talked about the young ladies that are campaigning in Merrimack. One of them is on my committee, and she does a fantastic job, and she cares as much about it as
Representative Janine Notter.
Representative Notter, for sure. Now, and also about the water issue, we may slightly disagree on a few things, but I think there's room to study about lower standards to make sure that we don't have any harmful elements in there. So I'm willing to support studies that go into lower standards, but I'm not willing to go down so low that it's to make things ridiculously expensive. Right. So that's why I favor a study, but we need to find out what really is the truth.
Now, didn't we, the Democrats voted to raise the PFAs higher than the federal standards?
Well, actually, they voted to lower them.
Lower them.
Oh, they lowered them.
Lower them.
That's right, they lowered them.
From 70 to 12, I believe, which is,
I was going to say,
it's measurable, but you need to buy expensive equipment to even measure that
But
far.
didn't that cause problems here in the state?
Well, it did. They went to court and they retracted it. But now, that's why I favor studies to find out where we might want to go and not just arbitrarily pick 12. Which I think is not
Give
good.
us a little insight on what subsidies and other stuff does to the electric bills.
Well,
being on that committee.
The Science and Tech Committee deals mainly in air quality and electrical, net metering and all the programs that affect your electric bill. I'll give you, for instance, on your electric bill, there's a category called Systems Benefit Charge, SBC. What is that? Well, most people don't know because it covers a wide variety.
SBC, what that means.
It's a Systems Benefits Charge, but it covers a wide range of state-mandated programs, not federal, but state, and not utility either. It's state-mandated programs that involve RPS, Regi, net metering, well, not net metering, but RPS, Regi, and something that is new in the last 3 years called energy efficiency. Now, energy efficiency, resource standards is another charge they're putting into the SBC, which comes under your electric bill, that takes more money from your electric bill, gives it, and it doesn't give it to the electric utilities, but they are charged with dispersing those monies to help pay for energy efficiency programs for people that want to take out a loan, or for low-income people that need to fix up some things on their houses. Problem is, everybody is paying for that. And so what's happening is we tried to put a bill in a few years ago that made sure that the legislature would control any increases in the SBC. Well, unfortunately, that was, the Democrats this year put the bill back in that said, no, we want the PUC, the Utilities
Public Utilities
Commission,
Commission.
Public Utilities Commission,
Yeah.
to decide if they're going to raise it. And it passed through some budget compromises. So let me tell you what happened. The Energy Efficiency Resource Standard Committee 3 years ago adopted a plan, and as of 2020, the amount of money that the entire state has paid from people's electric bills was approximately $37 million statewide. You say that's not that much, but it is a lot. But guess what? Under the new plan that that this committee has now suggested to be adopted, in the next 3 years, in 2021, the money that it takes out of the people's electric bill is going to be $77 million. That's in 2021. And someone might say, wow, that's doubling. Well, hold on to your hat, because in 2 years after that, it's going to be $380 million statewide. That's the plan that they are submitting. And the problem is that they're submitting it now to the PUC. Since we don't have legislative authority over them, the PUC, there's the last step. If they approve that plan, that's the money that would be taken out of people's electric bills.
Is
So
that at
we
eight-
need to work on things to try and mitigate that. Maybe can't do it for 21, it's kind of too late now, but maybe in 22, we get in the House, we can offer a bill that would, you mitigate some of that and put the control back to the legislators. This, I sit on the Energy Efficiency Sustainability Board, and that commission came through. I was only one of 2 people to vote against that plan, and now it's going forward to the PUC starting September 1st is when their docket starts. So this is big money, and the legislature needs to be in control of that.
In layman's terms, put it out there so people understand, what does this do to the electric bills? Because one of the things I get complaints is for businesses on their high electric bills and.
Oh, it affects everybody.
What does this do to them?
Well, especially for the commercial and the industries, we're not talking $50 a month. We're talking hundreds of thousands, in some cases hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Big companies, maybe $1 million, takes out of their money, which means they can't hire as many people. They can't do advancements. Now, these big companies have already taken advantage of these subsidies and efficientized their plants. We know that because we hear their stories, but now they're going to still pay more for having someone else put, insulation in their house, or maybe, better windows, but everybody's paying for it, and their bills are going to go up, and they're complaining if this doesn't go down pretty soon, they're still threatening to leave the state.
Doug, talk a few minutes about that $800 million carbon tax that they wanted to put in and then tabled at the last minute.
Yeah,
They
that
didn't
was,
want to vote on it.
House Bill 715.
Yeah, that's right.
That was atrocious. I'm glad you brought that up, because nowhere in the world has carbon taxes worked the way they thought they would. A Nobel laureate economist has called carbon tax a blackboard economics. And the reason is because when you put it on paper, it looks like it'll work. It looks fine. It doesn't work in the real world, because carbon tax affects everything that is manufactured or moved by fossil fuels, anything that's manufactured using fossil fuels. those prices will go up. They claim that if you raise the price of gasoline, which would raise, under that program, gasoline would raise about 55 cents a gallon. You know, at our current gas prices now, we're not even, that wouldn't even approach the $4 a gallon that we paid a few years ago. No one drove less under $4 a gallon. So the thought that by having a carbon tax would raise your gas tax, people would drive less, doesn't work. It will work when the price per gallon is so high that people would stop driving. But before you got to that point, people would rebel because they're not going to pay $8, $9, $10 a gallon. So that part of the carbon tax just doesn't work. Europe has tried this for years. Now, the U.S. only produces about 15% of the carbon emissions of the world. Europe and Asia produce the vast majority. In all the time they've used carbon tax, carbon measurements have not come down to a measurable significant effect. So the only thing a carbon tax has done in those other countries has put more money into the government's coffers.
Now,
And the poor people have suffered because now they're paying a lot more.
Now, you said, you know, sitting in the committee and listening to the testimony on that, and I know the Democrats are pushing this. What in the world are they thinking about? I mean, is it because of Joe Biden pushing that he wants to get rid of fracking, wants to get rid of this, he wants to get rid of that?
Well,
what came up? Why would they want to do this to the people of New Hampshire?
The climate change, climate change is real, climate is changing. We all agree.
But it's been doing that for hundreds
It's
of
been
years,
going,
right?
it's, and the rate of increase may have increased slightly over the last 100 years, but the fact is that I see people testifying all the time, it's whatever it costs, we need to do this, is their mantra. And I'm saying we can't afford whatever it costs. We need to come up with a reasonable mixture of renewable energy and current fuels that we're using that doesn't break the bank of people. And every time we reach a goal, they want to increase the goal again. So every time you agree to a small increase, when that goal is reached, that means they're coming in with another bill and they want to increase it again, which means more money out of your pocket. It's got to stop. We have plans. We had a couple of really good bills that were submitted by the Republicans that would have helped municipalities in this manner, and it wouldn't have broken the backs of the people. And the Democrats said, yeah, that's a pretty good, so we're going to combine it with a atrocious bill that we couldn't live with, and so everything died. So we have a plan. We get back into the majority. Some of those bills will be submitted to help, not hinder people.
Mm-hmm.
I got a question, Doug. I mean, we know some of the radical socialist Democrats in Congress. I mean, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez there wants to get rid of all, pretty much coal, oil, gas, and everything else. She wants to eliminate it. Is there any reality that this country could do that without costing trillions of dollars?
I don't believe so. Renewable energy is good and effective. It has its niche, but I see maybe 15, 20% of our energy coming from it at its best right now. People want 50%. It might be attainable in the next 10, 20 years, maybe, but there are people that want 100%. And I don't know. Sun doesn't always shine, wind doesn't always blow. Mm-hmm. There are batteries out there. Mm-hmm. Batteries are good. They last maybe 5 or 8 days. They're expensive right now. That's why there are other bills that they've submitted that wanted us to subsidize battery installation into people's homes. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it's expensive. It's extremely expensive. I think that where we are now is a good start, and I think that on a graduated scale, we can move forward to maybe a little more in the market, but for what they want to do would cause a lot of consternation and strain, and particularly on the lower income people, which will always pay more when there's taxes out there. And these programs sometimes have rebates for the low income, but that means we'd have to establish a different department in the state, pay those people to manage the redistribution of the wealth.
Well, government, once again.
So it really begs a lot of questions. Like I said, it looks good on paper. It looks like it'll work, but in reality, it doesn't take into effect the real world and the fact that most people aren't going to stop doing things until it's so expensive that you'd have a riot.
Well, I guess that, to me, brings up one of the things that just aggravates me to no end, is that, you know, everybody wants clean air. Everybody wants clean water. There's no question about it. We feel just as passionate about that as everybody does. But there's a way to get to it, and it's not just jumping off the cliff to get to it. Even if this country went 100% renewable energy, does anybody in this country think that China and India and Russia in places like that are going to adhere to that?
Well-
And until that happens, climate change ain't going to happen in this world.
Like I said, the U.S. is only responsible for about 15% of the carbon emissions in the world. Even if we went 100%, it's only 15%. China and India have been given third world country status on climate change because they control a lot of those boards. And so they don't have to adhere to those standards. Now, they are building some wind turbines, they are doing some solar panels, but for their size and the amount of output and the amount of development that they're doing, Peking is still under smog alert at times. People are wearing masks for smog reasons, really. And India is not far behind. So they are producing a lot more, and they're not getting penalized for it.
Wow. You know, I still remember, it's like flashbacks of convoying from Camp Pendleton to 29 Palms out in California, the desert, the train, and going through Yucca Valley and seeing all them mills out there, and many of them all broken down and all rusted and looked terrible.
Some-
I mean, I don't understand what the benefit is.
Well, I agree. I went to the Big Island of Hawaii on a couple of vacations, and down on the south end, the couple of times that I went there, they had rows and rows of wind turbines that were rusted. The propellers were sitting on the ground, and quite frankly, they weren't economical to run. That's why they were left to rust. Now, since then, because of the previous administration's handouts, they built new wind turbines there, and they've cleaned up the mess. But the fact is what you point out, we have a lot more solar panels out there. Solar panels are very toxic, by the way.
To get rid of them, right?
Yeah, they're made from very toxic materials. We don't have a plan yet to how to dispose of toxic solar panels. My plan is, if we get in, is to look at a study or of some sort to figure out what solar companies may need to do to help pay for disposal after a certain period of time. The wind turbine companies have that. Solar's does not. So I'm afraid that in 20 or 30 years, and some of these panels are approaching 20 years old, when they're getting ready to be disposed of, there's no plan, no one has put into any fund to help dispose of them because they are toxic.
And aren't a lot of the solar panels coming from China?
Many of them are, the cheaper ones are, and they're very toxic.
Now, the ones in my house now, supposedly, when it was Solar City, they were being made in the U.S. And then Tesla bought the company, because I didn't buy them, I leased them. Because, you know, and I listened to Trump and others over the years saying, you know, in the long term, it takes you forever to recoup that money that you paid for if you're running solar yourself. So it was benefit for me.
Right.
But, you know, you brought up something here which popped, the light bulb went off my head. What else are, I mean, as Republicans in your committee looking to move forward in the next term on what we're going to do about dropping or saving the taxpayers or the consumers on electric? What
Well-
are we doing? Is there a plan?
I know we have a few legislators. I'm planning to be a sponsor or co-sponsor on some of those bills. I don't want to say specifically what they're working on right now because it hasn't been finalized.
But we do have a
But we
game
do
plan.
have people working on things to modify the citizens benefits charge. We do have plans to allow municipalities to benefit from a greater amount of net metering without affecting people's pocketbooks. They're on the books, but they'll probably be submitted sometime in the late fall. Until they actually have them worded, I wouldn't want to say exactly what they're.
Doug, something I keep seeing the Democrats putting out, and maybe you can explain it to the citizens of Londonderry about this net metering.
'Cause we're getting ready to veto, right?
We're getting ready to sustain the governor's veto, and I keep seeing all over the place that, you know, we're against increasing the net metering up to, was it 5
5 megawatts.
5 megawatts, and that right now cities and towns can't do that, but I remember talking to you, you said they can do it.
Well, yeah,
Can you explain that?
Yeah, let me be clear, because a lot of times the news media does not report it the way it should be reported. There has never been and still is nothing that prevents a private person or a business or a municipality from putting more solar onto their network. Nothing. They can put, well, if they go over 5 megawatts, that's a different issue, but they could put up to 5 megawatts on their own, no problems. Nothing restricts them, nothing. The issue is they don't get rebates for doing it. They don't get subsidies if they go over 1 megabit. That's why they want bills to increase the amount of solar panels, megawatts, in order for them to get more subsidies. If you open this up to 5 megawatts, you're going to see a lot of developers and industries that will be pouring in because they will now start developing more solar panels, but that means they're going to be collecting more subsidies from people's electric bills. So once again, everybody in the state, except for perhaps municipalities, special co-ops, everybody in the state will be paying more for these people to put solar on their area because they'll be getting more rebates. And the reason why this is not very good is I believe that if you can show that that you can do something for just about as cheap as you can do someplace else, that's a good thing. But what they've done is right now, utilities, they pay approximately 3 to 4 cents per kilowatt hour for their fuel. Under the current state law for net metering, and decided by the PUC, if a private person or business produces more energy than they use and they sell it back to the grid, the utilities has to pay, I believe it is right now,
Retail,
12 cents a kilowatt hour.
That's considered
That's 4
retail
times
versus wholesale.
Right, that's 4 times what they could buy it elsewhere. Well, they don't eat that money. That money that they pay for the extra charges is folded into their next rate increase request. And the PUC sees that as a cost of doing business, and they'll approve it, and guess what? Your rates will go up. So that's how that net metering works. Now, if people were able to sell it back at 4 or 5 cents a kilowatt hour, I would say I'm all for that, because now you can go to wherever you can get the best deal. But by mandating what they must pay from someone else versus what they could get on the wholesale market, you're paying a lot more for it.
Yeah, see, I couldn't support it. I know none of us would support that bill, and because of the cost, what it's going to do to our constituents on the
Right.
on electric bills.
And by the way, I just want to add right now, electric bills are not exorbitantly high because of that. That is a factor, but many people blame the utilities for this. You have to understand that over 50% of your bill comes from the cost of fuel that is now produced by other companies, by the way, not by utilities. And a lot of the costs that are being charged by the electric company are mandated by the regional electric grid managers, which we call ISO New England. They dictate how much money that everyone has to pay to help the entire region, not over and beyond New Hampshire, but that's New England as a whole, that's out of the utilities' hands. So when you look at the cost of your electric bill, there's a lot of charges in there. Many of them are state mandated. A lot of them are mandated by ISO New England, and the majority is mandated by the cost of fuels being manufactured outside the state somewhere.
If I'm going to throw something out here so the people watching this show here will understand, please talk to Representative Ann Warner, okay? There are 6 Republicans that voted against this here, net metering, and she continues to vote. We all love Ann, but the bottom line is, you can love somebody there, but, do you leave your wallet out with them? Because what's happening is she keeps voting with the Democrats and pushing these costs up. You know, and it's not good for Londonderry or for the state of New Hampshire. You know, and we're in the midst with this bill, right, that we're gonna sustain. They're
right.
picking winners and losers,
They
pretty
are.
much.
Yeah.
I think the main thing I wanted Doug to explain to the citizens is that, you keep reading that, okay, that we're against increasing and the cities and towns can't go up to 5
they can,
megawatts
yeah.
and everything
You're
else.
right, good
And
thing.
that's why I wanted Doug to explain that they can.
Right.
It's just that the ratepayers aren't gonna get taxed for them wanting to go put more solar in.
That's right. Well, I mean, there's also the issue of property taxes, but that's just it. I had testimony. I won't mention the person's name, but he's the mayor of Lebanon. He would come into us and say, "I need this bill. Why? Can't you do it on your own?" Well, yes, I could, but if I did, I'd have to raise the property taxes in my town, and the people wouldn't like that. But if he gets his bill approved, now everybody in the state chips in via subsidies to pay for what he wanted. And they come out and say that.
Yeah, so
Because they
that's-
know people won't approve a property tax because they don't want their property tax. So these fees, I call them hidden fees. They're hidden because you look at your electric bill, you can't figure out exactly
You ain't
where
kidding.
the money's going.
It's like 8 or 9 different areas or whatever.
We tried. We tried to pass one bill that would explicitly state what one charge cost you at the end of the year, whether it was $10, 20, or 50, or 150, probably be more like 150, and got it through the House. But unfortunately, it got changed in the committee of conference, and they changed it to not the total fee of what you paid per year, but it changed to what you paid for it based on a kilowatt hour.
Wow.
Now that was useless because no one is going to look at it and say, well, 0.012 cents per kilowatt hour is what I paid for this program. What does that mean to me? You know. But
Now you
people want to
see
see
why
dollars
we
and
need
cents.
this guy back.
You know?
Huh? He's the genius when it comes to playing with his megahertz and costs and trying to save the taxpayer or the consumer's money.
I hate to use those terms. I'd rather use subsidies.
And that's why it's so good to have these programs so that, we can explain to the people the truth behind these issues and not what, they're reading in the Concord Monitor and places like that distort, the facts. And that's why we need people like Doug to be able to sift through this kind of stuff.
You ain't kidding.
And tell the truth and lay the facts out.
Doug, we got about 42 seconds left there, and if people wanted to talk to you, how do they get in touch with you there?
Well, I have my email, doug.thomasnh@gmail.com. My phone is always open at 490-3226. And Facebook, I use Facebook. You can go on to Doug Thomas NH, and I do have a website that will be linked to that as well. I have spoken to some constituents. They call me sometimes, and we talk. But I have to summarize. Electricity and science and tech isn't the only thing that we're interested in. There's a lot of other issues out there that
You
we need
ain't
to
kidding.
attack. And
Right.
if we don't get the majority back, there are bills sitting there right now.
Once again, this is Al Baldessaro. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Hi, this is Representative Al Baldessaro, and we are back again along with my co-host, Representative Sharon Packard. We have a special guest here with us today. He's a business owner, a first-term sheriff. He owns the Londonderry BP gas station here, a friend for many years. Welcome, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Chuck
And
Maceos.
thank you for inviting me, and thank you for inviting me too.
Welcome, Chuck.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Chuck, I'm glad you were able to come by and do this here because, first of all, give us a little insight before we get into some of the dirt here that came out here on what have you been doing since you're on your first term?
Well, number one, I want to thank you for inviting me here today. In 1999, I came up from Salem, New Hampshire. I ran the family business, and I had a great opportunity to come up to Londonderry, New Hampshire, and if someone would have told me in 1999 that I would own a business in Londonderry, I would have laughed at them because I never thought that I would leave Salem. But Londonderry has been a great community. I consider Londonderry my second home. I've been a resident of Salem for 61 years, if you can believe it, right? And but when I came up here, it's such a great community, and it opened up a lot of doors for me to try to help not only Londonderry but the surrounding communities. I mean, if you come by my gas station on the weekends, we have car washes for all the schools. I mean, we have the Knights of Columbus that they do their Christmas tree drive. I mean, I've always felt, hey, listen, I have the opportunity, I have the perfect location, and I'd rather see kids succeed in life.
do a lot
And
for the
and if
community.
it's raising money for them, okay, for their sports or for their graduation or whatever, it's my pleasure to try to help them out. And like I said, coming to Londonderry was one of the best decisions that I ever had, because you know what? I met people like you, Sherm, and a lot of other people that are in this town, and you know, it just was a great opportunity. So,
Tell us a little bit about, first of all, I know Sherman, we were on the road every day going to Concord. We drive through Rockingham or go down,
Yeah.
in Salem and Wyndham area, but I see more sheriff cars out there than I've ever seen in the past many years.
Well-
What's going on? What have you done since you became the sheriff?
well, I made a lot of campaign promises. One of the campaign promises was to be a more community-based police organization. And I felt that, I mean, we're a tool for 37 towns throughout Rockingham County. And, it's your taxpayers' dollars, right? And I just felt that, that people really didn't know what we did as a sheriff. And that was the biggest concern. What does the sheriff do? And, I mean, we have a civil process and division and a patrol division. And it was very important for me to make sure that when my deputies are in your town serving civil processing, or unfortunately doing evictions, or part of their job, that they made it known with your local police, like with Londonderry, and we're in your neighborhoods, and we're looking for things. We're looking for people breaking into your houses. We're looking for speeders, whatever we can do to try to keep, to provide law enforcement.
Right.
And it was very important for us to reach out. When COVID-19 came in, it was a very stepping stone for us, because we had some late nights drawing up new procedures. So not only that we protected our deputies, and it was very important to make sure that our dispatch center, because we're a regional dispatch center, we dispatch for 24 towns and 17 fire departments, and we wanted to make sure that that area was safe. So we had to draw up a response plan to this
So the
COVID.
county's making money there. I didn't even think of that. We're making money off of this.
County makes a lot of money. I think, I'm not 100% sure.
We keep the
but-
taxes down there.
but
We
I
do a
think-
good job.
I think that with all the, with the work that we do, and we get paid for a lot of services too, between our civil process and even our details that we do, all that extra money goes back to and people say, well, geez, cops, you see cops doing all details, but it's a good opportunity for these towns, because it's extra revenue coming in. When those deputies get paid that certain amount of money, there's a portion of that money that goes back to your towns.
Right.
And the same thing with us. When we're doing details, that money there's a portion of that money that actually offsets their budget, because it's a lot of money. I'm not exactly sure how much we make, but it's close to $1 million
Yeah.
that the county gets for our services. A lot, when I did campaign, I felt very strongly about drugs and enhancing the Rockingham County Drug Unit. And, these drugs affect our children, our family, our friends, and I've seen it firsthand.
Right.
As a business owner, I've met a lot of people, and, and there's a few of them, that touched my heart. And I went to bat for them to make sure, you can make an arrest on drugs, but there's just more than an arrest,
Right, yeah.
okay?
Needs
It's making
help.
sure that these people get into these treatment facilities, okay, that work, right? And, Governor Sununu has done it, you know what I mean? He's stepped up to the plate to make sure that these people that are on drugs really get the help that they need, And especially with the Trump administration too, you know what I mean? There's a lot of money that comes into New Hampshire for all these
Rumor
programs.
has it, your sheriffs and others, the team there, the task force, made a huge bust on drugs.
Well, I did enhance the Rockingham County Drug Task Force, and we did receive grants from state and federal agencies, and we actually had the largest drug seizure of fentanyl in state history, and we got a couple other cases that we're working on right now, but this was a team effort. you know, I can't take all the credit for everything that I do, but you know, we have hard-working men and women every single day that come into that office, right? They put that badge and gun on, and you know, we take drugs very seriously, and getting that conviction, 3 guilty convictions, and
Right.
it was very important, and you know, and I'm proud of what we've done over there, you know, but we still have a lot more work to go.
Well,
Chuck, if I just take a couple of minutes, Chuck, and you know, just explain, because I think a lot of people don't understand what authority the sheriff's department has, you know, and I know some of it's constitutional authority that you have. Can you just explain to the people, because
Right, well,
again, you know, unlike a state like Florida where the sheriff's department is, you know, all over the place, explain your constitutional authority and, you know, what authority you have statewide.
Well, we do have statewide authority. Actually, the sheriff's office has the most, you know, powers of arrest, because we can go into any town, right? And, you know, if I'm in Concord, New Hampshire, and I see someone doing wrong, I can stop, right? I can arrest, I can write tickets. But it works very well, especially with our drug unit, because what we do with our we have 11 towns and 22 offices that work on that program. And I swear them in as part-time deputy sheriffs, and they're assigned to the drug unit. And that way, if you have, for a perfect example, we have a Windham police officer working for us, right? So if we're in Brentwood doing a drug deal, they have powers of arrest. So the sheriff is 10 of the most powerful law enforcement people in the state of New Hampshire.
that's awesome. You know, there's some stuff there, you know, that you have a primary, and I mean, I'm kind of aggravated over what I read in the newspaper, okay, in the Londonderry Times.
I don't disagree with you.
There's a guy running against you, and I know, and I've seen what he's done up at he was the county commissioner.
Right.
And I've seen on how hateful, how deceitful, how rude this guy is. And I know when he was our county attorney, prosecutor for the town of Londonderry, we got rid of him, okay? Because he really ruined a lot of families, young kids that had little parties, you know, it might be beer parties, kids in high school. I mean, I'm not saying don't arrest, I'm saying he should have been working with these kids, you know, instead of marking their records and everything else.
Right.
But there was one thing that I seen in the paper that he put in here in the Londonderry Times, and he said, I've watched Mr. Maceos illegally fix a ticket for which he is still under investigation, which I know as a state rep, and Sherman and I sit on the county, is BS. Can you answer that?
Well, number one, it's against the law to fix a ticket in New
Right,
Hampshire.
yes.
And there really is no fixing a ticket, all right? It's up to the discretion of the person writing the ticket, not me, okay? To either to reduce it to a warning, right? Or continue on with it. So this misinformation or misleading information that Mr. Coyle, that was a political vendetta against me,
Right.
right? It's untrue, it's false. Yes, is there an investigation going on? Yes. And it's sitting up at the AG's office.
No, it's not.
But
It's been there for a while, it's not going anywhere.
You're going on 2 years.
Right, yeah, that's
All
a
right, it's going on 2 years.
Right.
I did absolutely nothing wrong. I mean, as a sheriff or any police chief, okay, you can talk to the person writing that ticket.
Right.
But it's against the law for a chief or a sheriff or whatever
Right.
to order someone to get rid of a ticket.
Right.
I didn't do it. And like I said, it's just a political maneuver, okay, to tarnish my
Right.
name and the hard work that we do over the Rockingham County Sheriff's Office.
You know,
Well, sitting on the executive committee over the past 2 years, Chuck, I've seen what he's tried to do to you. You know, tried to strip money out of your budget, prevent you from getting cars. You know, and you know, obviously this was the reason he was trying to
Well-
go after you so that he could run for sheriff himself.
Well, like I tell everybody all the time, I ran for sheriff and I got elected to be the sheriff. I answer to the people of Rockingham County.
right.
They're my
You've done a great
bosses.
job doing it,
You know, Mr. Coyle is a county commissioner
right?
with no law enforcement experience, right? He can say that he has 25 years with the law enforcement experience. He's a prosecutor.
Right.
and that's what he
And
is.
he's screwed
He's
a lot of
prosecutor.
families here in
You know,
Londonderry.
I don't like to speak ill about
I
anyone,
will.
but I've been a businessman, all right, for 40 years, and
But you-
25 years up here in Londonderry.
How long have you been a sheriff now, deputy sheriff?
Well, I've been with the sheriff's office. I got sworn in, and I went through the police academy in 1990.
Yeah,
And I've been, 29 years with the sheriff's office, and almost 2 years as the high sheriff.
right.
And I've been to law enforcement training. It's required by law that we go to training, but I always do the extra too when it comes to training. And even like with this job now, I've already signed up. I wanted to get my feet wet being the sheriff because we had a lot of work to do. Once this primary is over and next year, right, I will be attending leadership schools through the FBI, and they put out, I think it's like every 6 months they do like a week-long leadership school. But this man has no law enforcement experience.
Right.
I mean, Sherman's been there. Listen, I've been fair. I've been honest. He's got he just, if you stand up to this man, he attacks you.
Right.
If you go through the county commissioners' meetings, okay, it's documented. I mean, just our cars alone, our first round of cars.
He wants to run you. He's been trying, right, at the commission,
Right.
trying to run the sheriff's
Well,
department. He's not the sheriff.
Perfect example when it came to our cars. When it came to our cars, we had a deputy that one of the cars got totaled, and luckily that deputy wasn't hurt. So we figured we're getting, I think it was 17,000 and then another 1,000 to get for us to remove the equipment. Our insurance carrier was going to pay for that car. So being a businessman, I go, okay, well, we have $18,000. I mean, we still had 2 more years on that lease, right? And I said, well, why don't you just can't buy a police cruiser. So let's find a company that has one, and we found a great deal on it. It was already, they were gonna paint it our colors, put decals on it. It came fully equipped with everything, right? We got a good deal on it. Well, they denied me that car. I mean, I had to go to my subcommittee, okay, to get that car put in there, right? And the reason why they denied it, because they wanted to know who's driving those cars, where they're going, right? Listen, this is confidential
That's none of his
information.
that's none of his
right?
business.
And I can tell you where the cars are going, but I'm not
Do you
gonna.
ask? Wait a
I'm
minute,
not
do you
gonna-
ask those questions? You're on the executive committee.
You don't ask those questions.
You know,
But see, the problem with Mr. Coyle is he wants to have control over the sheriff's office.
we know he hates you. That's why because you're not a politician.
I'm not a
You're
listen.
a police officer, a sheriff.
That's right.
That's
right.
why he doesn't like you. You don't kiss his butt.
Right. And and to be honest with you, I really don't want, I mean, I've never been like this in my life. Like I said, I've been a businessman for 40 years. I've never, ever been treated like this.
Right.
I go to work every day, and the people of the Rockingham County Sheriff's Office, right, they put that badge and
respect
gun
you.
on, okay? And we work as a team.
Right.
And for Mr. Coyle, okay, to call my deputies corrupt
Right.
and call me a crook, you want to come after me?
Right.
You come after me.
Yeah,
All right.
that was
but come after
unsaid.
me for my record, right? But don't come after my deputies.
Yeah, that was unsaid. The letter or the information he turned over to the Londonderry Times was unsaid. It was very unprofessional for the commissioner of Rockingham County. We know how there's a vendetta. We see him. We sit on boards.
Right.
I mean, he's on the executive committee. I'm not, so he sees more than I do.
Sherman was on the salary subcommittee meeting, okay? And hey, listen, I'm not going to lie to anybody. I worked for the sheriff's office for a long time, and I have a good business background, and that business background helps me run the day-to-day
Right.
operations of the sheriff's office. But I brought a man in with 44 years worth of law enforcement experience, a man that worked 20 years down in Florida for one of the largest sheriff's office, and he came back up here. And actually, at one time, he worked in New Hampshire. He was the Hudson police chief for years, and he actually went down to Florida, and he came back up here to finish up his retirement.
Right.
And I met him at the Manchester airport, and we worked together. And he rose to the rank of captain. When Sheriff Linehan had to resign, he became officer in charge. He was a captain. And the county commissioners offered him that job, but he's not a politician.
Right.
He's a cop. When Sheriff Downing was around, he made him major, and he retired as a major. And then Sheriff Downing made him the chief deputy. He ended up going over to Atkinson Police Department for 4 years because they ended up letting their chief go, and they were going to make a full-time position. But they ended up, they kept it part-time, and they offered him the job because he's a man of character.
Right. Yeah,
Okay?
he's a great guy, yeah.
And he's
Very
a cop,
professional.
right? And he's very
Yeah.
professional. And they saw what he did in Atkinson, they offered him that job. So when I decided to run for sheriff, and there's a lot of factors why I want to run for sheriff. I ran for sheriff because I care about all the citizens of Rockingham County, and I care about drugs. I care about active shooter, right? I'm here to do a job, right? And this man had a personal vendetta against my chief deputy, right? And he basically is telling people that I sublet my job and I'm running my business in Londonderry. Well, if you look at how most sheriff's offices work in the country, especially in New Hampshire, or if you look at how most police departments work, right? Deputy chief. And what does the chief do? The chief is the leader of an agency, and he assigns tasks to the chief deputy, which goes down a chain of command
Right.
to get your mission done.
It's like in the military.
I had a mission when I became sheriff. I wanted to take drugs off the street. I wanted to be more involved in active shooter, and I wanted to be a community-based police
You've
organization.
done great with the schools.
And we've done it, and we
Yeah.
still have a lot of work. For this man to have a vendetta against him, right? It's terrible. And the same thing with the car, with his salary. He hated him so much, right, that when we did our budget, now number one, we had our budget, all right, this year was a 15-minute budget meeting. We worked month on this budget,
Right.
and we worked hard on this budget to come in with a new budget. And I felt when we did our budget, right, that we needed to put another deputy into our drug unit.
Right.
And I wanted to hire another NCIC clerk because with bail reform, we get inundated with warrants,
That's right.
all right, every day. So what we were going to do is we were going to fund those positions from January to June, which would have brought us into a 1% increase in our budget. And if you factor the cost of the money that we're making over there, all right, it basically balances it out. So we had before that meeting started, we were supporting all the first responders. We went up to Exeter Hospital, we went over to Portsmouth Hospital. Parkland Medical Center sent out an email asking if anybody's available, police, fire, to go over and support the doctors, the nurses, the maintenance people, the people that are in the line of fire.
Right.
So we went over there. So 18 of our cruisers went over there. It was the last 15, 20 minutes of their shift, and they basically all drove home on their own time. But Mr. Coyle had a problem telling me that I was wasting taxpayers' money.
Oh, jeez. With
Well,
COVID-19 and other
I have a
health-
heart.
Right, yeah.
Listen, we've gone to birthday parties for
Right.
kids. We were on the front lines when it came to these protests.
Right.
Right? So he ended up at that budget meeting, they ended up getting to a tiff about us doing that. So we went after him about respect for law enforcement. And he has no respect
Right.
for law enforcement. He never has, and he never will. And that's what happened. And that's when this $50,000, because he has a personal vendetta against my chief deputy, right? He tried to cut $50,000, okay, out of my part-time deputy line. Now, my part-time deputy line is funded at $114,000. So there's 9 part-time deputies. We've had that same amount of dollars for the last 7 to 8 years, and we've never overspent that budget. The county commissioners were concerned that we were going to overspend some lines, and that was one of the lines.
But you know, they
But we underspent that
Right.
line by $11,000. But actually, we underspent our whole budget by $288,000. That got returned to the county on our previous budget. So we met with our subcommittee. The subcommittee all agreed, right, to put that $50,000 in it because they knew that he was going after my chief, right? And we're wasting time, okay, on small things.
We
But
all,
anyways,
we all seen what he was doing.
it
so,
got put
yeah.
back in. You know, and this is the problem. If you stand up to the man, right, he declares a war
Right.
on you.
Well, he was mad. He got mad at me because I voted. Okay, when I did the phone thing on the votes for the county there about the pay raises and stuff, and I made a comment there and said, these people during COVID are working. They're not sitting home working. They're out in the streets. They're out doing stuff in the, helping first responders. Why shouldn't we? I said, police got their $300 or whatever
Right.
extra money there a week there for hazardous duty pay.
Right.
So that's what I felt, that you all were there working
Well,
and deserved.
listen.
And you told me you didn't want the raise. I mean, I understand that. You said you would have worked for nothing.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, listen, our elected officials, over there, all right, are hard-working individuals, right?
Yeah, they are.
And you know what? These raises, for what they get paid over there, right? It's important that they get their raise. They deserve those raises. I mean,
Yeah.
you got a county attorney over there that works
yeah,
very
Pat
hard.
Conway.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? She is an excellent county attorney.
Yeah.
And we work side to side. Kathy Stacy, the Register of Deeds, right? She's been there for so long,
Right.
okay? How
Awesome.
much money does she return, okay?
Quite a bit. Yeah.
Quite a bit, right? to
That's
the-
why our
to the
county taxes are low all
You
the
know,
time.
in today's economy, in today's world, okay, just because we're elected officials doesn't mean that we shouldn't get a pay raise. You
Right.
know what I mean? And they deserve a pay raise.
Right.
All of us do.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you changed your mind there. I had to beat you up on that
Yeah.
there, when you said you would work for nothing.
Well, you know what?
You think we
But-
should cut him now, since
No,
he
no.
said that?
But
Work-
you know what? Honestly, if this job, I didn't take this job over for the money.
I know you
Listen,
didn't.
I'm a successful businessman. I
Right.
didn't wake up one day and say, I want to be the sheriff of Rockingham
Right.
County. I did it for the deputies, the
Mm-hmm.
retired deputies, and I did it for the people. And I would have done this job for nothing if I
Mm-hmm.
had to.
Well,
But
Well,
the
I
people
just-
but the people that work there, the elected officials, okay, they work hard for their
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
money.
they do.
work. They're very loyal, hard-working employees, and they deserve those raises.
I'm the chairman of the salary subcommittee, and when this came to us, we had a discussion about it, and we voted unanimously to put the 50,000 back in.
yeah.
Right.
And, the executive committee went along with us,
Right.
and so did the full delegation.
See, it's kind of funny. I mean, if you look at county politics, now, I mean, I've known the two you guys for a long time, but everybody I deal with, the executive council, right, or anything that does with our budgets, or anything that does with the sheriff's office, we get along fine, right? Because you're reasonable, understanding people, all right, to see what I need. But it's not only me. You get, I mean, with all the elected officials over there in our budgets, it's it's unfortunate that this man has just turned it around.
That's why I wanted to make sure. If you read this here in the Londonderry Times, it's a joke. It was disgusting. It's untruth, and I think it was very unprofessional by the Kevin Coyle. And he just proved why Londonderry fired him, why we got rid of him as a prosecutor on his comments there.
But what I like to say though, honestly, is I really don't care about Mr. Coyle.
Right, none of us do.
Okay, I really don't.
Right, he moved to Portsmouth, by the way. You know that.
Well,
he
he
should have
moved-
resigned.
well, he
as
should
the
have resigned,
commissioner,
but
and he didn't.
It is
'cause
what
he's not in
you
the
know what
district
it
anymore.
is what it is. But I became sheriff, okay, to lead the great people that work over the sheriff's office that work hard every day, and I campaigned on a lot of promises, and one of them was enhancing the Rockingham County Drug Force, which I did, and like you said, with the largest seizure of fentanyl, and I worked hard on active shooter. Listen, it's Rockingham County is so big, and we are the largest county in the state,
Right.
and we are the best county.
We're
in the
fortunate to
state.
be controlled by Republicans. That's why the taxes
Absolutely.
are low, unlike
Absolutely.
other counties.
Absolutely. But you know what? And I campaign on active shooter, working with the school safety committees, the fire, the police, the EMS, business. We offered it out to House of Worship. But my biggest accomplishment is being a community-based police organization. We're a tool for every single town in Rockingham County in police. And that's my goal, and those are the goals that I want to continue. A man like Mr. Coyle that has no respect for law enforcement. And
That's a shame.
I call it the 3 Ds, right? I probably shouldn't say it, but I'm going to say it anyways. He wants to defund, He wants to dismantle and he
Right.
wants to destroy the sheriff's office.
Yep.
He's said it at meetings, right? And so we will have no capacity to do the hard police work that we're doing. And it will stop if he ever gets elected
Well,
sheriff.
we've heard him, you know, we're fortunate because the legislators, the state reps in the county are the ones that actually do the voting. He
Right.
might make his recommendations, which I'm glad he's gone now, we don't have to deal with him, you know, whining all the time. So, you know, which is a good thing, so hopefully we get a good, you know, conservative in there to, you know, to make a difference.
Well, the whole thing that bugs me is that his wife is running for county commissioner over in District 1.
Yeah,
Now,
and she's a Democrat, right?
I
That's what
don't
heard.
know
I
if
heard
she is
she's
or not.
she is a
She is a
Democrat.
Yeah,
Democrat,
that's
okay.
what I heard, yeah.
You know, but
I just don't understand how, hey, listen, his wife's his wife, okay, and if she wants to be a Democrat, that's her own opinion.
Right, that's
her own
fine.
That's fine.
Right.
But how?
But they're
you-
tax
you-
and spenders.
You sit, that's right. But you sit next to someone for what, 10 years, side to side, making decisions for the county, and then have your wife run against that person? What's this show for that other
Right.
county commissioner?
Yeah.
Right? There's a time for change, right, for Rockingham County with its commissioners, and hopefully we'll get some good commissioners in there.
We got 34 seconds. How do they
Right.
get in touch with you, Sheriff?
You could probably see me at the garage
Yeah.
when I'm there.
Or call the Sheriff's
Or
Department?
you can call the sheriff's office at 679-2225 and ask to be connected to my phone. I'm sure everybody in the county has my cell phone number.
Oh, yeah.
Right? If you want to call me my cell phone number, it's 603-235-2369. I'll be happy to listen to
Sheriff,
you.
you're doing a
Thank
great
you very
job there.
much.
We definitely appreciate
you.
everything you've done.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate you giving me the
Once
opportunity.
again, this is Who's Looking Out for You. Sherm Packard and myself will be back next time if Janine's not available. Great day talking.